All right, so we are recording. So officially, welcome again, everyone, on behalf of the White Lake Community Library. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Krista this evening. Her profile says Brett, but it really is Krista from Tortoise and Hare Farm. As I said earlier, we've had beautiful weather today, so this seems like the perfect opportunity to meet one of our local farmers and hear a little bit about what's going on locally to keep us healthy and also keep some flowers maybe on our tables. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of that. All right, I'm going to switch the view here, and Krista, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight. As Amy said, I am Krista, owner and operator of Tortoise and Hare Farm, along with my partner, Brett. I'm really excited to be here tonight, share some of our farm story with you, along with some of our farming practices. I'll be discussing ways you can try to implement these techniques at home on a gardening scale, and then sharing some resources at the end to help you learn more about small-scale agriculture if you're interested, and also ways to get in touch with our farm if you'd like to learn more. So first, a little bit about Tortoise and Hare Farm. We're located north of Muskegon, just east of Death Lake State Park. We moved here from Chicago to our property about 4 years ago. Our property is 30 acres, most of which is woodland. We grow on a little over an acre, which might not seem like much, but you'd be really surprised how much food you can grow in that amount of space when you use the techniques we've developed over the years through inspiration of other farmers, as well as lessons that we've learned as we've grown. We began farming in 2018, so this will be our 4th season as farmers. We started running our farm with just the 2 of us, and have slowly started adding employees to our crew over the last couple years. We're currently looking to add a few new members this year. If you can get in touch later if you know anyone who'd be interested, or if you're interested yourself. But our primary focus is on producing a wide variety of vegetables, which we mostly sell at farmers markets in Muskegon and Grand Rapids. We also have a small CSA. For those of you who are not familiar with CSA, it stands for Community Supported Agriculture. This model has been used for decades to connect small farms and their customers. Each CSA farm looks a little different. The common theme usually revolves around encouraging customers to invest in the farm ahead of the growing season. This benefits us by allowing us to plan for the season, as well as receive income early in the year when a lot of our supplies are purchased, but before we have produce to sell. We also sell directly from our farm through a weekly farm store, which since the pandemic has been transitioned to online ordering. Our customers receive an email every week with the products we have available, along with a link to order and then pay online. We also sell a limited amount through local restaurants and health food stores. And then again, I'll share more later if anyone's interested in getting connected with our CSA, farm stand, or markets. This year, we're also expanding into cut flower production. Over the past couple seasons, we've just been learning more about flowers and experimenting with how they would fit into our farm. We found that they're a really great complement to our vegetable production, using a lot of the same methods, materials, and tools we already have. Beyond that, we're really impressed with how the added plant diversity really helps the overall health of our farm, mostly by attracting pollinators and beneficial insects. Plus, they're pretty. So I feel like our produce feeds the body and our flowers feed the soul, which may sound a little cheesy, but it's really true in our case. So I'm excited to be trying a lot of new varieties expanding into some new garden plots and creating hopefully some really lovely bouquets, which will be available through our farm store, markets, and we're also going to be doing a flower CSA this year. So another major operation we have on our farm is our annual spring plant sale. We sell a wide variety of vegetable and herb seedlings from our greenhouse to help other gardeners get started and get growing. The plant sale is also transitioned to online ordering, which is up and available on our website right now. So again, if you are interested, I'll be sharing that later. So you might be wondering, how did 20 to 30-something-year-olds go from living in a third-story walk-up apartment in the city of Chicago to living on 30 acres and starting a farm business? And I sometimes have to ask that question myself. It's essentially a love story, a love of nature, a love of food, a love of gardening, and a love of each other that was so strong we decided to risk it all and start a business. So I won't bore you with too many details, but Brett and I met when I was living in Grand Rapids. I went to visit some friends in Chicago. We bonded pretty much immediately over our passion for cooking from scratch, love of gardening, travel, and doing just about anything we could outdoors. The beginning of our relationship was very soon tied to this dream of doing something really fulfilling with our lives. Neither of us had a background in farming, so we are what's considered first-generation farmers. We both had prior professional careers, mine in physical therapy, and Brett had gone to school for plant and soil science. So close, but his emphasis was on turf management. He planned on being a greenskeeper for golf courses, which he did for a number of years before transitioning into more of the sales aspect of the golf course world, which consisted of really selling mostly a lot of chemicals. And as we were learning more about where our food comes from, local farms, organic methods, that was kind of increasingly weighing on his conscience. So through joining various CSAs and becoming connected with small farmers, a dream developed of turning our potted balcony garden into a larger piece of land that we could grow lots and lots of plants on and possibly sell to our community. Over the next couple years of research, reading books, going to farm conferences, listening to podcasts, volunteering on farms, and then finally, and very importantly, taking a small farm business course. The idea that we had of this homestead and being more self-sustainable kind of morphed into an all-out farm business with the goal of feeding hundreds of families and providing our sole source of income, doing what we loved. So we're very lucky to live in this age of information at a time when so many gracious farmers who've gone ahead of us have been willing to share and help make a path into small-scale agriculture. Our first farming hero was Elliot Coleman, followed soon after by J.M. Fortier. And since then, countless inspiring figures all over the world and right here in our Midwest and West Michigan farming communities. We've had a lot of incredible mentors along the way. So for anyone interested in the idea of starting a farm business, please feel free to reach out. We can provide resources that can hopefully help you get going in the right direction. It's a really exciting time in food production right now. There's basically a revolution happening that's hopefully forever transforming the way we access food as more and more people of all ages are being called to grow and return to smaller scale farming, using methods that rely less and less on chemicals and mechanization and more on living in balance with natural practices that decrease our impact on nature and the living creatures within it. So that being said, my intention is not to judge or criticize any other farms or the way they produce. I'm just here to talk about our farm, describe how we grow and why we choose to farm the way we do. So there are as many kinds of farms as farmers, and what's the most important thing is just being involved, being informed, and knowing, deciding what's important to you, getting to know the farmers around you, learning more about different ways of producing food, which creates a really good foundation for making choices that impact yourself and your family and also the environment around you. So, how do we farm here at Tortoise and Hare? Our farm philosophy is based first and foremost on soil health. So it is the foundation of every living thing. 1 teaspoon of soil contains more living organisms than there are people on the planet, wildly enough. I read that somewhere and it was just kind of like, wow, that's incredible to think. So our role as farmers and gardeners is to support the health of the soil, which then leads to the health of the plants that provide our crops. Too often in farming, humans are creating more problems than solutions by attempting to bend nature to our own will. It takes a great deal of humility to realize that anything that we are trying to accomplish, nature probably already has a way to do it better. So getting out of our own way, I guess, is how you could kind of describe our general philosophy towards farming. We want to try to mimic nature to the best of our ability, working with it instead of against it, with the ultimate goal of being able to give back more than we're taking. So the primary reason, these are kind of the primary reasons that we have decided to transition to no-till methods, which are pretty much exactly like they sound. It's farming or gardening without the use of a tractor or tillage implements. Tillage or using tractors basically to create some kind of soil disturbance to then plant into, it has a lot of effects on the structure and biology of soils, of living soils, and that's what we want. We want a living, breathing, balanced soil that functions the way it was designed. So tilling is kind of a very prime example of attempting to bend nature to the human will by use of a process that, like, ironically, creates more harm than good usually. So kind of a breakdown of what tillage does. One of the main reasons a lot of people like to use tilling is it creates, basically this clean, fluffy, perfect seed bed. It also, in that process, it breaks down a lot of organic matter very quickly by hyper-infusing oxygen into the soil. So oxygen breaks down, releases organic matter, which is mostly composed of carbon. The grower might experience an initial boost in nitrogen, or in other words, fertility, by the faster breakdown of organic matter. But in the long term, organic matter is being used more quickly than it can be replaced. So with our no-till system, we're consistently adding organic matter through compost and mulches that break down and help build the soil health at a slower, more natural pace, and generally, hopefully, trying to add more than what we're taking away. And we really have seen the benefits after a few years of doing this, of just our soil health just increasing every year. So one of the most important practices we follow to build soil health, other than avoiding tillage and adding compost, is keeping our soil covered as much as possible at all times. Soil that is exposed to the elements such as sun, wind, rain can quickly become depleted as organisms in the soil die off. So soil should be like a sponge. It should act to, absorb water, absorb nutrients. But soils that are consistently exposed, you'll typically begin to see a decrease in what the soil can absorb, which can lead to a lot of environmental problems such as flooding, nutrient runoff, and some icky things like that. So we want to support the soil structure and not break it down. We want to build the living organisms in the soil and not destroy them. So we use several methods to keep our soil covered, including the use of cover crops, tarps, mulches such as leaves, wood chips, straw, thick layers of compost to protect that delicate ecosystem on the soil surface, which is really where most of the activity in your soil is going to be happening. We prioritize really dense planting to create a protective canopy, while also having the benefit of, suppressing weeds at the same time, and giving us higher yields from our space, maximizing that small space that we have. This helps us we plant, so another important part of that is planting really established seedlings. You want the plants to be as big and vigorous as possible when you get them in the ground. That helps not only to keep the soil covered, but it helps you get crops out of that land faster than if we planted by seed, where you need to, wait that time for them to germinate and establish. So we get nice, big, healthy plants right into that soil and they just take off. It's really important having that like photosynthesis constantly happening, feeding the soil through, living plant matter through the roots. So as I mentioned earlier, we grow on 1 acre, which that really might not seem like a lot, but we are honestly able to pull so much food from that size of land by using some techniques that we use to kind of maximize that space. It also allows us to grow a higher quality of food, I believe, farming at that scale, because we can really be engaged and present with what's happening on that level, eye to eye, hands in the soil, really seeing what's going on, catching problems before they get out of hand. We farm only what we can manage on a human scale to ensure that these principles are followed to the best of our ability. These methods also allow us to grow a greater diversity of crops and quantity of produce, as I mentioned, with less wasted product as well, by us being able to really fine tune our planting and plant really only what we know we're going to need and be able to sell. So our beds that we farm in are, they're 30-inch wide beds, typically 100 feet long. These are permanent beds, so once they're established, once they're made, we pretty much leave them alone, and what we're doing is building on top of them rather than tilling into them again and again. We really focus on a lot of crop rotation. So basically the minute a crop is used or spent, done in the fields, we aim to have that replaced like almost immediately, which really helps us get a lot more crops out of those beds. Sometimes we'll have 3 and even 4 different crops in one bed in any given season, which is pretty amazing. A lot of farmers might plant, rows of something and that's it. That's what will be in the ground, for that season. But with our methods, we're able to get a lot more out of that space. So like I said, yeah, our beds are 30 inches wide. We have really narrow passageways in between the pathways. So again, that allows us to plant densely and get a lot more soil coverage, suppressing weeds. We don't need any heavy equipment to drive, into our fields. So we don't need that extra space that, tractor tires might take up. So we can plant really, really densely, really efficiently. So another way we increase the production for our limited space is by using covered structures, such as hoop houses, high tunnels. These buildings really allow us to extend the length of our growing season by providing extra heat. We can get crops in sooner and keep them in longer, like later into the year. We're also able to really create these like perfect conditions for summer crops with like just the perfect amount of heat, the perfect amount of moisture, and that gives us higher yields on those plants than we would get in the field. So one of the main reasons farmers do continue to use tillage, despite knowing the negative effects it has on the soil health, is that it's a really quick way to deal with weeds. So again, it's kind of one of those things that's creating more damage than good. And when you think about the fact that weed seeds, they're typically buried and suppressed in our soil. Weeds are basically the band-aids for soil, so that they have developed over millions of years to, when a soil is disturbed, to pop up quickly so that that soil is covered and staying alive and active. So weeds, are really only plants that we don't want in our, beds. They're not necessarily an enemy. They have a very important, ecologic function. So, yeah. So as far as weeding goes, when you're tilling, you're basically pulling up that weed seed bank. You're taking all of those weed seeds that were suppressed deep down in the soil, just waiting for that soil to be disturbed. And then over time, you're getting more and more weed seed brought up to the surface of your soil. So with our no-till methods, we're basically layering on and building down so that we're further suppressing those. So really, over time, the only weeds that we're dealing with are weeds that are maybe being carried in from our shoes, from the sides of the fields, or being blown in through wind. But our basic, standard methods for dealing with those are mulching. So again, keeping the soil covered with any kind of mulch. And then pretty much just getting, routine management. We use really simple tools to help take care of emerging weeds when they're small and before they get out of hand. And then honestly, once those crops get established, once they're big and healthy and thriving, that shades out a lot of the seeds that might emerge, creating weed problems. So we also use landscape fabrics and some other, you can use cardboard, you can use newspaper. There's a lot of different things that you can do to create weed barriers that are going to keep moisture in. And then also be some weeds at the same time. So, yeah, weeding. Let's see. Another thing I really wanted to talk about is pest management and the way we deal with that. So pest management also becomes a lot easier with no-till principles, as healthy and vigorous plants are just naturally more or less susceptible, I should say, to pests and disease. A pest problem is often the result of something being out of balance in the farm's ecosystem. So either in the soil, plant health, or even the diversity of plants. Having as much plant diversity as possible and rotating crops can confuse pests, whereas a plot planted with a single crop is pretty much like a neon sign reading like free buffet for whatever pest it is that likes to feed on that plant. Another benefit of plant diversity is being able to attract and support beneficial insects. They are our friends. They will do what spraying does, but in a natural way. If you want a certain pest or something to disappear from your system, the best way of doing it is to attract the beneficial insect that would then be the predator for the pest you're dealing with. So we do at this time use a very limited amount of very intentionally applied pest sprays. They're all organically approved and plant-based, but we'd really love to get to a point with our soil health to not have to use them at all. We also use floating row cover, which I don't know if you've driven by a farm or garden. It's basically like a thin mesh. It does allow sunshine and water, moisture to get through. but it does exclude a lot of pests. So sometimes we'll cover our beds with that. It also gives us a nice like temperature boost in the spring, so it can help, you know, a vulnerable plant get established quickly, and then be able to thrive where we don't really need any or little further deterrents for pests. So, and I did want to mention too, just a quick note about organic versus non-organic. It can be a little confusing. So we use organic methods, but we are not certified organic. And what that means is basically, so the term organic has been adopted by the USDA. It's now regulated through the government. And there are very specific requirements for the use of the term. So farms are certified through agents that inspect their records. They ensure that these requirements are being met. For a small farm like ours, the choice to become certified can be a tough one. It's costly. It does involve a really good deal of paperwork, which can be burdensome for small farmers. So because of that, we've decided not to become certified organic, and mostly because we sell direct to our customers. So we have a really good trusting relationship with them, including transparency of our practices. The most important thing, I guess, if you are, you know, concerned or dedicated to buying, you know, produce that's been organically grown, if you do see that certified organic logo, like, you know, and can be sure that the requirements for organic are being met. If a farm's not certified, talking to the farmer, asking about how they grow is really the best way to find out. We're currently in the process actually of becoming certified naturally grown, which is kind of an alternative certification. It's geared more towards small farms. It is done through peer inspection, so other farmers are, you know, inspecting. It's a lot more cost effective, and then also just the criteria is very similar to being certified organic, but in some ways I'd say it's almost a little more strict, because it also includes following principles of sustainability as well. So that's a lot of information about our farm, about how we grow, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how that applies to more of the gardener scale. So I think the most important concepts of growing organically and sustainably at home involve mulching, using compost, transplanting when possible, weeding often and before weeds get out of hand, as well as growing a diversity of crops, including those that provide pollen and nectar sources to support pollinators and beneficial insects. So for getting your garden beds established, you know, this is the time of year we might be thinking about, okay, time to wake up the garden, or maybe even start a new plot. There are a lot of benefits to doing an initial till to get your beds established, mostly being that it's going to be a lot faster than other methods. But if you want to establish beds without the use of any tillage, it is definitely possible. It usually consists of smothering the grass, the sod, the weeds with tarps or cardboard or some combination of mulch over a period of time. If you think about when you've if your kids have left like a toy in the yard, or you set down a bucket and come back a couple weeks later, all this, all the plant life underneath is dead because it's been starved from, the energy of the sun. So it's kind of, using that natural process to establish a bed that's going to be clean and ready to plant into. My main advice for any grower, whether farm, garden scale, is to start small with what you know, with the resources available to you, but start with a plan. Know what you want to grow and how you want to grow it. A great place to start is evaluating what you like to eat, what your family likes to eat, and going from there. But definitely decide on, a scale that's manageable for you before the season gets going, so that you have that plan in place and things go more smoothly, once things heat up and start happening. At the same time, being prepared for challenges is inevitable and important. So nature often has a very different idea of what is going on than what we do. So, pests, weather problems, these things will pop up, and it's really important to be resilient and to, adjust when those things do happen. Keep calm, do your best. Remember, there's always next year to make changes, to make improvements. Take notes on what works for you. That'll really help adjust your plan every season. Just, get it better and better. Growing food is a marathon, not a sprint. So have patience. And yeah, that's those are my quick tips for home growers. But I'd love to open things up for questions. I'll also be listing a list of resources that we have to, just if you want to do further reading, further learning. There are some really great groups that we've been able to join, groups on Facebook for any questions that you want to ask, like, hey, why is my broccoli not growing? Or, so on. So I will be showing those, and also a link to our website if you're interested in learning more about our markets, learning more about our farm stand, CSA, plant sale, all that. So yeah, so does anyone have questions?
Krista, I do. I want to thank you and Brett for the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it. I'm a customer, and I found you guys online last year, and I, just bought online and then went to your farm stand. And Brett let me walk around the property. It's absolutely beautiful. I just love going there. I love the chickens and the dog and and the hoop house and the woods. It's just beautiful, and I can see that you put a lot of love into it. I really appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions. Will you open the farm stand back up? Like, are you just going to have it online and then you pick it up? So that's one. Will the flowers be available through the farm card, which is what I have this year? And then with those plants that you can buy online, is there a particular date that you pick those up?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thanks for your support, and I'm really glad that you've had a chance to come here and kind of get a better picture of what we're doing. So the first question, remind me, I'm sorry.
Let's see. Will you open the farm stand back up?
Yes, yeah. So originally our farm stand was, it was on a night before we had harvested for market. So we had a lot of our plants available, a lot of our produce available, I should say. And we would just kind of let people come and pick what they wanted. With COVID last year, it kind of like turbocharged me into becoming more of an online presence with our farm. But we've actually really liked that. We've really liked just the ease and convenience it seems to give people to order their food, pay, and then pick up. So we are going to be continuing to do that online this year. If you're not part of our newsletter, if you're not getting our weekly emails, definitely get in touch with us, or you can sign up for those on our website. So typically what happens is I'll send out an email every week, just telling exactly what we have available, with a link as well so that people can go and order. The farm stand is going to be on Wednesday nights. This season, right now, since we don't have any produce, we are selling eggs at this time. So if you're interested in getting eggs, the pickup day for the time being is Fridays. And once we switch over into having produce and flowers available, that will switch to the Wednesdays, which it pretty much coincides with our CSA pickup. The flowers will be available at the farm stand. They'll also be available. We're not planning on bringing many to Muskegon Market. We're actually planning on bringing most of those to our Grand Rapids Market. So the farm stand would be the best place, you know, in this area to get access to those. I'll be doing lots and lots of weekly bouquets. I'm also doing a flower CSA. So very similar to our vegetable CSA, but it's 10 weeks long. It's a bouquet every week. And then all the flowers, eggs, produce, everything that we have available through our farm is, the farm card is, you are able to use that. Okay. So for anyone else listening, our farm card is basically a CSA alternative. You know, the CSA that we do is a weekly subscription with vegetables that we curate and choose based on what we have available. So it's a really cool way to try new vegetables that you might not otherwise try. But for some people, it can be a little limiting in that, you know, you've got to pick it up at a certain time every week and so on and so forth. So the farm card, it's basically a gift card. We load it for you. You can use it at our markets. You can use it at our farm stand. You can use it anywhere we sell our produce and on anything that we do grow and raise. So yeah. So thank you for being part of that program this year. And I really hope it works out for you, that it's a convenient way, you know, for you to get access to our stuff. So.
And then as far as the plants, you know, yes. When do you pick those up?
Yep. So you can pre-order online right now. Everything that we're growing for the plant sale is available on our website. And you do pre-order that, and I'd have to look, I want to say it's the 25th and 26th of May that we're doing that, doing the pickup. So when you order your plants, you'll get an email saying that we'll be in touch with you. And then we're usually pretty good at emailing pretty quickly to give you the dates and pickup times, and then you can choose which one works best for you. And we'll have your plants ready. You come, you pick them up, no fuss. And as always, anyone coming to the farm, always, always, always welcome to take a look around, you know, walk around the fields, ask any questions about what's going on. It's been hard with COVID to, you know, a lot of the like contact that we normally really enjoy and the connection that's really part of why we love farming has, you know, decreased quite a bit with not being able to be in contact with people. But we still want people to know that our farm is open, it is available to everyone, and that in safe and distanced ways, you know, we really encourage people to take a look around and still, you know, continue to be engaged with what it is we're doing and what's going on. So yeah, does that answer?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And I think there's another one on here. Okay. Okay, I don't see a question. I think it's just kind of like an encouragement. So,
Hi. I had a question about mulch. Like, yes. I've been reading books about gardening, and everybody talks about mulch. Like, where, how, what is a good mulch, and where to get mulch, and how thick should it be, and what do you? Anything about mulch.
Yeah. So it might be a decent time for me to share these slides here in a minute. I have some resources written down of, you know, places where you can get access to some of like the tools and equipment that we use, as well as supplies. Around here, we go through a company called H&H. It's a landscape supply store, but you can reach out to really any gardening center around us, and kind of look, you know, at prices, at like what they have available. We get all of our compost delivered from them. So it's a really high quality compost from made by Morgan's Composting here in Michigan. It's also known as Dairy Dew in the garden centers. And we've really loved it. It works really well. And honestly, like sometimes compost is mulch for us. So we will lay down a really thick layer of compost right on the top of our bed, especially if we're direct seeding into it, because when you're direct seeding using other kinds of mulch, you know, it really isn't possible because you need that seed to soil contact. So compost can be mulch. That's one, you know, trick, I guess. And then I don't know if you've seen, but the way I'm establishing my flower beds has been really, really cool and really, really effective. And basically what I do is I get the ground prepared, I get the beds prepared with anything I might want to put in, you know, little compost or whatever to get the soil going. I cover that with cardboard and then straw, but you could also use wood chips. The thing with using wood chips in your garden that you've got to be really mindful of is that they do tie up and bind nitrogen. So they're a much slower to break down, you know, source of carbon or organic matter. So we typically keep wood chips in aisles, you know, or like in pathways if we use them at all. A lot of times we're mulching with either leaves or straw, but so using the leaves or straw, whatever you have available on top of the cardboard, basically we'll just then wet it down really, really well. And then as we're transplanting, we can just kind of pop little holes in that soft cardboard and just pop our transplants right into that. And then again, as they grow, as they establish, get bigger, then we've got this whole big plant canopy going on. So does that answer your question? Mulch tangent.
Yeah, I'm just like, I get a little bit confused because it's like, I guess I didn't really know what mulch is. You hear everybody's like mulch, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So it can be anything. Okay, that's
right.
Good.
Yeah, it can be a lot of things. I mean, even so, like, you know, landscape fabric, another term for it, another thing it's called is plastic mulch. So basically all mulch is something that's protecting that, you know, the soil surface layer from the sun, from the elements. That's basically, and its main purposes are typically to lock in moisture into your soil. So like exposed soil, it dries out a lot faster. If you have it covered, you're going to keep moisture in there a lot longer, which can then like reduce your need to irrigate and all that jazz. So, and then its second large purpose is for suppressing weeds, you know, creating that barrier that's going to prevent weeds from popping up. So yeah, you can use all kinds of things. Newspaper, the same system I use with the cardboard and then the straw or leaves. You can do the same thing with like thick layers of newspaper. Just always want to be sure you're overlapping them so that there's no cracks where weeds could then like grow through.
I like the cardboard idea. I might try that. I think
it's typically a free and very available source of just a really nice weed barrier, and it should and typically does like break down over the season, or if not, if there's pieces left of it, you know, in the following spring, I'll just kind of rake that out into my pathways, and then I've just got mulch in my pathways, and I'll start over all again with the compost, cardboard, straw, or leaves. So
I have one more question. So I'm getting my garden bed ready for planting, and I have like chunks of plants left over from last year. Like, do you leave the chunks, like, you know, just like the tomato, I cut it off and it's just like there. Do you pull those out, or what do you do with them? Do you put them, like, kind of tuck them back in, or?
Yeah, that's actually like an awesome question. So part of what we do to help our soil health as well is we will cut off all of our, you know, basically like crop wastes, you know, whether it's like, let's say I had this big broccoli plant and it made a head of broccoli, yay, great. The rest of that plant really isn't super useful and I want to get a new crop in that bed. So what we'll do is we will cut the base of the plant just below the soil surface, leaving the roots in the soil, because those are going to continue to break down. They're going to feed soil organisms. They're going to build organic matter. So leaving that in as much as possible is really the best. If we're going to direct seed and we need a nice smooth bed, again, that's when we would probably add a layer of compost so that we have something nice and smooth to run our seeder through. But if you're transplanting, like a lot of times we'll have little stumps or little this and that hasn't quite broken down yet. And we just kind of plant around it, because as much as possible, we want to leave that in the soil to continue feeding it. So, and then the plant wastes that come out of our fields, like big stuff we'll take out and we'll typically feed to our chickens, or you know, you can compost them. If it's small stuff like a lettuce mix or something like that, we'll just kind of quickly come in and like hoe it just at or just below the soil surface, and then just kind of leave it in place, because a lot of that stuff is going to break down so fast, and just, again, like feed your soil rather than pulling it out. You know, we leave it there, which might look more messy, but, you know, in the end, the only caveat to that, I would say, is if you do have plants that have any kind of disease, you definitely want to get that out. You want to remove any of that material from your soil, because a lot of diseases can, you know, embed themselves in your soil and then, you know, spread to plants when you plant them again. So yeah, we usually leave stuff in as much as possible. Good question. Cool. Anybody else have any? I'm going to try to pull these slides up for anyone who hasn't seen, hasn't been on our website. I can kind of pull that one in. Let's see. I'm not extremely tech savvy here, so bear with me. Yeah, so this is our website. You can also find us on Instagram or Facebook at Tortoise and Hare Farm. Let's see. These are some of the resources that we have for seed. So using really high quality seed is a really important part of how we get growing really healthy plants from the start. So we typically order from Johnny's, High Mowing, Fedco. They all offer certified organic seed options, a lot of variety. Again, so supplies, Morgan's composting. We use that for our potting soil, any kind of organic fertilizers we're using, compost deliveries. They're a really great company to work with, and you know, we've just been really happy with their products. So we get that through H&H, any local landscape distributors. Knolts is a really important resource for us. We order a lot of like our irrigation supplies, our tools, row cover, shade cloth, trellising material, things like that. And then these are some of our favorite farming and gardening books that have really, really helped us just dial in and, you know, become better growers. So there are those, and there are also a couple really awesome podcasts if you're into those. Farmer to Farmer podcast, and then also the No-Till Farmer have some really great resources and great you know, links to find more information. So yeah. Are there any more questions? I don't think so. Back to you, Amy.
Well, thanks, Krista. This is great. I'm gonna, let's see, add in, hang on just a quick second here. I'm just adding into the chat. I included your contact information there also, so it's clickable.
Okay.
And I'm just adding a couple other resources that we have at the library. I just quickly grabbed a handful of them off the shelves. I mean, of course, there are all sorts of things from DVDs to, I love this one, The Sustainable World, Food and Farming. It's a children's book that, you know, is sort of the, how do you get started with these practices and things that you've been talking about? Well, you know, it helps if you start them young. So anyway, just thought I'd share some of those too, and anyone that wants to continue that conversation and continue their learning beyond what you've shared. Krista, would you do me a favor and like tonight or tomorrow, if you've got a chance, can you send me those links, and that way I can include them when we send the slides out to everyone? Just the resources, you can just send me the whole slideshow there, and I can include those also.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I can send those to you, so.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Krista, for the great information. I was thinking about the fact that, you know, it's kind of a bit of a mean tease that Mother Nature has given us with this beautiful weather today, and we've got all this information, and now it's going to get cool for the next little bit, but it gives us planning time, like you were saying. So
yes, now is the time to plan.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. If you are interested, totally kind of a turn in another direction, but we have another presentation coming up next week through the library on Hemingway in Northern Michigan. So check out our calendar for that information. And like I said, we're recording our program tonight. So once we get that all downloaded and ready, that will be emailed out to everyone and available. So if you've got any questions or want to pick Krista's brain about all of the great things you've heard tonight, you'll have her contact information there. So take care, everyone. Have a great evening.
Yep, thanks a lot.